Want to say happy Valentine's Day to you today. If you didn't know already, today is Valentine's Day. And some of you might be a little bit worried right now because you forgot. You don't have much time left. So we've been preaching about the favor of God. The favor of God and finding God's favor. Amen? So we've been talking about that. And today, I want to use that subject in a little bit of a different way. And I want to talk to you about the favor of God in your marriage. The favor of God in your marriage. And let me just first say that this sermon is for everyone. That every person that's here, this is a word of God that is for you. That this is not just, some people say, well, I'm here and I'm alone, and so this isn't for me today. I can just ignore this. No, I don't want you to feel that way. I want you to know that you're included. Some of you, maybe your spouse is in heaven, and I feel for you today, especially on a day like Valentine's Day. Maybe your spouse isn't with you, or maybe there's been some sort of an issue, or maybe you're not married yet and you're waiting for the man of God or the woman of God that He has for you. And irregardless of what your situation is, this word today, I'm believing it'll be a blessing to you because you'll apply it not only in your marriage, but you can apply this in every relationship in your life. And specifically, the Lord may be doing a work in you to prepare you for somebody that He's going to bring into your life. Is that good? So we talked about favor, and I want to tell you what favor, this definition that we've been using. Because of God's love and acceptance. Because God, number one, He loves you, and He has accepted you. He gives the promise of His presence. That's good, isn't it? When you're going through stuff, you might go through hard times, but if you know He's with you, you're going to make it through. You have the promise of His presence and the working of His power. I'm glad that indeed He hasn't left us alone, but He's given us the Holy Ghost, who is mighty and at work in the church. And He's given us the working of His power to enable me not to be able to do some things that I can already do, but to accomplish His purpose in my life. His purpose for you is bigger than you. And you need God's favor so that you don't just live a mediocre life. I don't know about you, but I don't want, if Jesus tarries and if y'all come to my funeral one day, I don't want somebody to stand up at my funeral and say, he was one of the most mediocre people I have ever met. He was just middle of the road, never did anything really outstanding. Nobody would want that put on your tombstone, would you? I don't want to be mediocre. I don't want to do small little things for God. I want to do great things for God. I want to believe that God is who He said that He is. I want to stand in faith and see God do things that only He can do. I want to be able to when I look back, say, you know what? God, I thank you that you used me. Lord, how would you use somebody like me? But you used me to do things I couldn't do, that only you could do through me. And it was only by His favor that happened. Is that good? Now, can I tell you, if we ever needed the favor of God in our marriages, it's today. The world that we're living in, marriages are crumbling and families are crumbling. When marriages are not strong, families are not strong. When families aren't strong, the church isn't strong. Are you hearing me? So it's vital that our marriages are strong. And the Word of God speaks about our marriages so much. The culture, and let me just say, the culture talks about redefining marriage. That's not possible, right? To redefine something that you didn't define in the first place, you don't have the authority to redefine. If you redefine something, then it is not what it used to be. So if you say, well, I'm just going to call it that, even though it's not that, then you've watered down what that really is. For instance, you're a human being. I'm a human being. There's about 7 billion of us on the planet. And we know the definition of human being. But if someone said, I want to redefine human being to also include tables. So it includes everything it ever was before. All the 7 billion of us are here. Plus it includes tables. If you redefine the word human being to include tables, then human being loses its meaning. Is that good? Some of you are like, wow, Pastor, where are we going with this? I thought it was all love and happiness. It's Valentine's Day. God defined marriage. Man didn't come up with this. Man didn't come up with the idea, so man doesn't have the opportunity or the option to say, now we're going to change it, so it's something different. Marriage is not a secular thing. It's a God thing. Jesus talked about it in Matthew chapter 5. He quoted Genesis, and he said in Matthew chapter 5, verse 5, "For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So then they are no longer two, but one flesh. And therefore what God has joined together, let not man separate." And let me just tell you, there are forces in our culture that are working to try to tear marriages apart. Our culture is hostile toward marriage, specifically godly marriage. And if you're going to have a marriage that has the favor of God, you're going to have to work at it. Some people walk, I said last week, some people walk in different levels of favor because they walk at different levels of obedience. You might walk in favor in one area of your life. Maybe you're walking in favor because you're walking in obedience in the area of your employment, of your job. But you're walking in disobedience in this area over here. It's not going to be blessed. And let me just tell you, you need to walk in obedience to the Word of God in your marriage so that favor will come to your marriage. If you neglect your marriage, you need to know your marriage will suffer. If you treat your spouse poorly and you walk in disobedience to God's word in the area of your marriage, you're going to forfeit the favor of God over your marriage. Now, today is not one of those shouting messages like a lot of the other ones that I've preached in this series. But I want to give you some suggestions to be able to have the favor of God in your marriage today. Everybody's got an opinion about what marriage should be and how you can work on your marriage. And if there's a myriad of talk shows on TV and you can listen to them and they have people come on and they're trying to give advice and they'll tell you what you should do and how you should do it. And, half the stuff they say is just not even worth somebody tuning in to, pay the electric bill to turn the TV on to listen to. Somebody say amen. You need to be careful where you get marriage advice. Sometimes I talk to people and they say, well, I talked to the other, people that I work with, and they said I should just leave the bum. Because that's what they did, and they're all miserable. Okay, wait a minute. What if we try to work on some marriage stuff? Maybe we're not getting advice from the best source. We need to get advice from the Lord if we want it to work well. There are a lot of different strategies that you'll hear people say, well, if I do this, then my marriage is going to be happy, and then it's going to be really good. And so some people will say you need to try to retain that in love feeling. You just need to do stuff so you just feel that same feeling you felt, when you were just head over heels and you just feel in love. And, that's one thing you can do. That's one strategy. Some people say, well, we need to try to improve our sexual compatibility so that we've got our sexual relationship better. And then if that's working, then everything else will work. Some people say, what'll help our marriage is if we have kids. Boy, if we have a family, then I know it'll work. Then I know when we've got kids, well, then everything will be wonderful. Why are you all laughing? I think a few of you might have some kids. Some people say, boy, if we could just get a better job and get more income and we get our finances stable, then that'll bless our marriage. And the majority of marriages, if you talk about the conflict that's there, the conflict very often goes back to money issues and money problems. And so if we could just get the money problems, and let me just tell you, those are all good things that maybe can be helpful and beneficial to help your marriage, but they are not the foundation. You talk about having romance, you talk about, that's great. You want to have that. Having a good sexual relationship, that's important in marriage. If you want to have a family and the Lord blesses you and you got good kids and you raise them, that is just very important. Having your finances in order and in obedience to God's word, having favor, that is really vital. But let me just tell you, none of those things are the foundation of a favored marriage. Those things, they might be good siding on the house, but they're not the foundation that the house is built on. Is that good? So I want to talk to you today about some things that are a good foundation that you can look at in the Word of God to have favor in your marriage. I'm going to give you 3 of them. Number 1, you need to commit to relationship with Jesus first. You need to make sure, some people say, my spouse is the most important person in my life. And as long as you're defining person as human being currently on the planet, that's fine. But you better, before you make that big of a commitment, you better be sure that they know and that you know God comes before you do. And your relationship with Jesus needs to be that godly foundation. Because if you don't have that, if sometimes people's marriage they think is a foundation of the other things, and the relationship with Jesus is the siding on the house. Let me tell you, that house, it'll crumble eventually. Because relationship with Jesus is not an add-on. It's the foundation. When this morning we sang about His love. We sang about how He loves us. Until you understand His love, you cannot love your spouse. You can't love them the way God intends you to love them until you have received His love. Only when you receive His love can you really have the relationship with your spouse that God wants you to have. If you want to understand marriage, you need to go to the source, and the source is a life-changing commitment to Jesus Christ. And I'm not talking about a surface commitment. This might offend some of you here today. If I haven't offended you already, then maybe this will do it. Some people have just a surface relationship with Jesus. And you know how you can tell that? Because your relationship with Jesus hasn't caused any change in you. If your relationship with Jesus is now what it was 12 months ago, then you better start to re-examine your relationship with Jesus. If your relationship with Jesus now is the same that it was 5 years ago and 10 years ago, you better re-examine. Because when you in real relationship with Him, He's constantly changing you. He is constantly calling you to a greater commitment. He's constantly saying, I want to do a work in you. He's constantly showing and giving you more revelation of who He is. He's constantly trying to get you to understand the awesomeness of His love in a new way so that you can then take His love and show it to someone else. People that aren't changed by Him, they don't have that kind of deep relationship. They have a surface relationship. Maybe it's good for Sunday morning. I told you I'd try to Make sure I equally offended everyone. But listen, I'm talking about I need to know him to the point that my heart is transformed by his heart. I need to know him to the point that I'm not the person that I used to be, that if there's stuff in my life that shouldn't be there, that he's working constantly on me. That's the kind of life-changing relationship that I want to have with Jesus Christ. And that change doesn't ever end. People say, yeah, he changed me. He changed me 28 years ago. Unless you reached perfection 28 years ago, he's still working on you. And the change that he wants to do is never complete until we see him face to face. Is that good? And if you're in that kind of a life-changing relationship with Jesus, you're going to be a better husband. And you're going to be a better wife. Where God's speaking to you about your marriage. Let me just ask you, have you been praying about your marriage? Have you been praying, God, would you help me to be a better husband? God, how could I be a better wife? Lord, would you help me to grow in expressing my love to my husband as you love me? Help me to have that deepness of love toward my spouse. Is that good? See, when you come into relationship with Jesus, I mean life-changing relationship with Jesus, a commitment to him changes the way that you look at marriage and the purpose of marriage. If you listen to people in the world talk about marriage, you will often hear people say, well, you know what? Marriage it makes me happy to be married to this person. Why do I love them? Because they make me happy. Do you know marriage is not designed to make you happy? Now, be careful if you're saying amen too loud right there. Marriage is not designed to make you happy. Marriage is designed to make you holy. Marriage is designed so that you would become more like the Lord. That you would be more like Jesus. If you have a motive in marriage that it's there to make me happy, think about that. That's selfish. And your marriage is never going to be what it could be if your goal is your happiness. If you want to grow in your relationship with your spouse, you need to first start to grow in your relationship to Jesus Christ. And you need to say, God, help me to understand how much you love me. I don't know about you, but when I mess up, and I do it a lot. Nobody can identify with that. I mess up a lot. But when I come back to him, he always loves me. And he always forgives me. And he always accepts me. And he always extends mercy and grace to me. He loves me irregardless of what I've done. He just loves me because we're in this relationship. And that ought to cause us to look at our spouse differently. If some people are holding against your spouse something that happened 30 years ago, aren't you glad that God doesn't go back every time that you mess up and go, yep, oh, look at what you did 30 years ago, same old thing. Aren't you glad he just loves you and he forgives you? And when you ask him, Lord, would you forgive me? He forgives. Aren't you glad that you don't even have to ask him for him to come and pursue you? His love pursues you wherever you are. What if we loved our spouses that way? That we weren't just trying to keep a record book and a score of everything that you did to hurt me and that I did to hurt you. Yeah, but you were worse. What if we said, I just want to show you so much love. Love that is unconditional. What would our marriages look like? See, when you come into a relationship with him, your marriage changes. God gave us marriage so that we could get the ability to be able to experience a God kind of love. Is that a good word? 1 John chapter 4, verses 16 and 17. Listen to this. We know how much God loves us, and we've put our trust in his love. God is love. How many of you're married and you love your husband or wife? Men, get them up quick. Okay, there you go. Okay, that's good. This is a good verse for Valentine's Day because it says, all who live in love, you just said you were in love. Everybody who lives in love lives in God. God lives in them. He gave you marriage so that you could have love and you could know that the reason that you have this marriage relationship was because he loved you. That's why he gave us this. It's a gift from God. There are many people that are married that don't have a relationship with God and they don't know where it is. But even in their marriage and their relationship, God gave that to them. It's a gift. And as we live in God, our love grows more perfect. If you'll just stay close to God, he will teach you how to be a better husband. He will teach you how to be a better wife. He'll teach you how to be a better dad. He'll teach you how to be a better mom. He'll teach you how to be a better employee. He'll teach you how to be a better employer. He'll teach you how to be a better friend. Is that good? Your relationship with him enables you to be a better husband, to be a better wife. You know, I've known spouses that are jealous of God. I've known spouses that there are men who, they're not saved, their wife's saved, and they don't want their wife going to church and getting all, in love with God and in love with Jesus because they are jealous. They want her all to themselves. Listen, if you got an issue of being jealous of God, number one, you need to talk to somebody that'll really help you out there because that's a big issue. But let me share with you that a relationship with God will do nothing but help your marriage to be better, not worse. It's nothing to be jealous about. So when you look at your husband or you look at your wife, you should be excited if they look at you and say, I love Jesus more than I love you. Because when I look at my wife, I love her more than any other human being on the planet. But I love Jesus more than I love her.
That's right. Love.
And she doesn't have anything to be jealous about in that because my love for Jesus enables me to love her more. Is that good? That works in every relationship that you have. That doesn't just work in marriage. That works in every single relationship with you that you have. All right, I need to move quickly. The second suggestion to find God's favor in your marriage, it's found in the book of Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, there's these awesome practical verses about marriage. It says, 2 are better than 1. Everybody look over at your spouse and say, that's right. Yeah, 2 are better than 1. Because they have a good return for their labor. When you work, you're gonna have more increase because there's 2 of you there working on it together. 2 are better than 1. And then he goes on to give another example. Because if either of them falls down, one can help the other up. Boy, Jessica and I do that. Some days you have down days. And on my down days, I'll go, I'll start telling her. And she will start to refocus me. She'll lift me up. That's one of the benefits of marriage. 2 are better than 1, because if somebody falls down, the other one helps them up. But pity anyone who falls down and has no one to help them up. Then verse 11 says, if 2 lie down together, they'll keep warm. But how can you keep warm alone? Very practical. better to be married and have somebody else. Two are better than one. Two are better than one. Two are better than one. Then he goes on in verse 12. Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. Honey, if somebody breaks into our house, we'll beat them off together. Not really. She knows, boy, if there's a sound that goes off, I'm out of that bed in a shot and I'm ready to go out. I come out swinging. Before I even know what's going on sometimes. So he goes on, two are better than one, two are better than one, two are better than one, two are better than one. And then you would think that he would say, so I'm going to wrap this up by saying, sum it all up to say, there's two and that's better than one. But he makes an odd statement at the end of all of this two are better than one stuff. He says a three, somebody say three. A cord of three strands is not quickly broken. What in the world? Two are better than one, two are better than one, two are better than one, two are better than one. A cord of three strands is not easily broken. But let me tell you, in your marriage, you have to realize and recognize that there are three people in your marriage. You know, there's a lot of love songs, just you and I. And just the two of us, and it's you and me against the world, kind of thing. There's a whole lot of that, but if we look at it biblically, it's not just you and your spouse. There are three. Because when you made a commitment to your wife or to your husband, you were not just making a commitment to them, you were making a commitment to God that you would love them. Is that good? Marriage is a commitment to God first and your spouse second. I'll say that again. Marriage is a commitment to God first and your spouse second. You need to realize that there's three in this thing, that God's favor and God's blessing are over your marriage, and that's what you want. Jessica and I, we've been married for almost 27 years, and what an incredible 27 years that it has been. And that is not because of me. I don't get any credit for that. She'll get a lot of the credit, but the ultimate credit goes to the Lord. She's had to put up with me for 27 years. Can you imagine that? That's been a long 27 years for her. But you need to remember every time you speak to your spouse that it's not just you and your spouse in the room. Hear me. Sometimes you speak to your spouse when you are alone in a way that you would not speak to them out in public. You wouldn't speak to them if you were in church. You wouldn't talk to them that way. Okay, now if there was anybody else left that I didn't step on their toes, I'm going to get them now. Sometimes we act differently when it's just us and our spouse. And some people use controlling words and angry words and manipulative words and spiteful, uncaring language. What if Jesus rang your doorbell, you open up the door, and he walked in and sat down on the couch to visit you and your spouse, and it's just the three of you? Would you start speaking that way with him in the room? Because he's there. Because your marriage is not two, it's three. So the next time that you're in the car and it's just you and your spouse, or you're at home and it's just you and your spouse, remember, it's not just you and your spouse. He's present. And let me give you the positive side of that now that I kind of stepped on your toes a little bit. If he's present in your marriage, he's present to help you in your marriage. And if there's trouble in your marriage, it's not just the two of you. He's there. And he wants to help you work through it. Is that good? All right, let me give you the third thing, and then we're going to have some special time together this morning. The third thing, you need to desire to mirror Christ's love to your spouse. You should have a desire that you could show to your spouse the kind of love that Jesus has shown to you. I have failed 1,000 times to show Jessica that kind of love. I'm human, and my love is not the love that he shows me. But I'm trying, and I'm growing. Scripture gives us a pretty high bar. Here's what it says in Ephesians chapter 5. There are some people that I think would like to scratch this out of their Bible. But it's just as much the anointed word of God as anything else. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 22. Wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. Pastor Dan's ready to shout over here. Wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as also Christ is the head of the church. And he's the Savior of the body. Now, if I would come to you today and say, do you love Jesus? Yes. And I would say, well, do you want to be obedient to Jesus? I hope you would say, no, Jesus doesn't know what he's doing. I'm not being obedient to him. Paul said, submit to your own husbands just as you do to the Lord. Can I tell you, none of you have husbands that are perfect like the Lord. And Paul knew that when he wrote this. You are not submitting because they're perfect. Heaven knows you're not submitting because they're smarter than you. Really, you don't submit because that person is smarter. Did you know that? He wasn't saying the husbands are always right. He wasn't saying the husbands are always smarter or the husbands always make the right decision. I'm a husband. I can tell you, that ain't always the case. Some humble men in the house, say amen right there. We're not always right. Newsflash. But the submission does not mean I'm just going to sit here and shut up and you just do whatever you want to do. It means somebody's got to lead. Somebody is charged with leading. So that you don't pull both directions and just pull everything apart. If your husband is leading in a way that you don't feel is right, you need to start to just fervently pray over your marriage and pray, God, I want you to touch my husband. And you need to speak into his life, but you need to allow God to speak into his life. And God, you'll see God can do, even in somebody like me who just has a hard head. Sometimes men have hard heads. God can speak to us. Isn't that good? Therefore, just as the church is subject to Christ, so let wives be to their own husbands in everything. Mandy, I'm going to give you a chance to shout now. All right, you ready? Because the responsibilities for the husbands are a lot longer. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ also loved the church. And he gave himself for her. Not, you know what, you just submit and you just be quiet and the husband do whatever he wants. No, the husband needs to be giving his very life for his wife. He would give up everything for her. It's not hard to submit to that kind of love. That's not a challenge to submit to someone whose goal is just that he's going to give everything he has for you. That's pretty easy to submit to that. Somebody say amen. He gave himself for her that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word. Husbands, that's how you need to look at your wife. That you want to make sure that you are constantly cleansing her. Not pointing out her faults. Not demanding things of her. But that you're coming to her saying, you know what? I am here to be a blessing to you. That he might present her to himself, a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she should be holy and without blemish. You see, husbands, you should not be responsible for blemishes in your wife's character or nature. Sometimes husbands, the way that we act causes our wives to in turn respond in a way that isn't good. And then we get this conflict going in our marriage. Maybe that's with some other group. That's not us. I'll talk about some hypothetical people that exist somewhere. And what he's saying is, husbands, you should not be responsible for a spot or a blemish or a wrinkle on your wife because you have mistreated her and caused her then to respond to you in a way that's not good because you gave her something that wasn't good. You should be loving her and showing her respect and showing her honor. Aren't you glad that the Lord respects us and He honors us? He honors us by loving us continually, by giving us His presence, right? We need to love one another that way, that you bring honor to your wife. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. You see, your marriage is a mirror of the relationship of Christ and the church. And I want you to get this. People should come to know Jesus because they see how much you love your spouse. You ought to love your spouse so much that other people look and go, how do you have that kind of relationship? How do you love them like that? And you ought to immediately say, you know what, this isn't me. It's because Jesus showed me so much love. Is that good? It ought to be the mirror to reflect to the world that Jesus loved you so you can love your spouse. You need to care for your marriage. You need to guard your marriage. You need to care for your spouse. I heard this week about a friend of mine in ministry, a pastor, a great pastor, pastored a wonderful church. And I had known that there was an issue, and I just found out this week, and it seems like I hear these kind of things a lot. Over the last year, I've heard 2 or 3 men that I knew who were friends of mine, but I just heard another one this week who had a moral failure. I thought, oh no, a good man. I know him, a man who loved God and loved his wife and had a great relationship and a wonderful family. And let me tell you, the enemy is always trying to attack your marriage. He's trying to attack it through your mind, through your thoughts. He's trying to come at you through any means he can. You need to guard your heart. Are you hearing me? We need godly husbands and godly wives who will live honorably, not just in public and not just on Sunday morning, who are going to do what's right and not allow even a shade or even a hint of things that would cause an issue in your marriage. You know, we shouldn't just debate marriage, we should demonstrate marriage. I'll say that again. We shouldn't just debate about marriage. We ought to be the demonstration of what godly, healthy marriage is all about. We need to make that commitment to one another. And let me just say, you ought to be different. You know, men, when you're at work and all the other guys are laughing at some dirty story, you should not partake of it. And they need to know, you know, if they ask you why, you need to say, because God's loved me and I love my wife and I won't partake of that. And you need to unashamedly let them know that. You know, ladies, if there's a bunch of other women around and they're all talking about how terrible their husbands are, you should not partake in demeaning your husband. Oh, yeah, I don't know how they are. My husband's like, oh, yeah. Listen, you're just taking up stones and throwing them. Aren't you glad Jesus doesn't do that to you? You know, he knows every fault that I've ever committed, and he doesn't go around and tell everybody else in the world all the bad things that I ever did. You know, you don't need somebody going around and pointing out all your faults. You need somebody who will love you through them. If we're going to be a light to the world, the first thing we need to do is make a commitment to each other and a commitment to the Lord. That is to honor. You know, you promised that in one way or another at your marriage vows, that you'd honor your spouse. Can I ask you, what are you doing right now to be honorable in your marriage? What decisions are you making to change so that you bring more honor to your husband or to your wife? Are you caring for your marriage? Are you demonstrating Jesus' love in your marriage? Are you growing in your love for him so that you can grow in your love to your spouse? You hearing that today? Today I'm going to call you to a deeper relationship with your spouse. Some of you have wonderful, blessed marriages. You've been married many years. And today's just another milestone in that. Some people this morning are wondering, I usually, if you're new here, I usually don't dress in a tuxedo when I preach. But 2 years ago tonight, I took Jessica out for Valentine's Day. And we went to Biscotti's for dinner. And so we were there at Biscotti's, and at the close of the meal, the waitress brought Jessica a book and handed her a gift. And she's looking at me now. She said, I forgot. I asked her to bring that book this morning. She didn't have the book. That's okay. Handed her a little gift. She unwrapped it. It's this picture book. And I just made up a picture book of our lives together, and I wrote things all the way through it. And so she's going through and reading this book. And in this book, and it was leading up to, at that point we were just a little bit over a month away from our 25th wedding anniversary. And I said, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could just go away, just the two of us, and that we could just spend time together, just the two of us. And then she flipped the page and I said, all the plans have been made. Everything's all taken care of. Would you just go away with me to the Caribbean? We're going to get on the Disney ship and we're just going to go. And I told her, you have 34 days left to pack and get everything ready. And she looked at me in amazement, like, what? What are you talking about? And so for our 25th wedding anniversary, we went away, and I did several different little surprises during that trip. We got there and we were staying at a place before we left, and we went in and she's looking around, and our best friends just came popping out of the bedroom and scared her, and just I thought we were going to lose her there for a moment. And so Tim and Tina Overly, he pastors the Church of God down by Columbus, and there he is. And so he was there, and they went on the cruise with us. And she didn't know why, other than just the fact I said, well, it'd be great that we'd have our friends with us. So on the night of our anniversary, the last night of the cruise, I took her out to a special dinner. They have a special restaurant that you have to get reservations for, a French restaurant called Palo. And so we were on the Disney cruise, so I wore my Mickey Mouse tuxedo. And I had helped Jess pick out her dress when she was looking at dresses. I said, oh, that would look really good. And I wanted to get something that would have white in it. And I said, well, let's get that. And so at the dinner that night, I think they have a little picture of us. They did anniversary thing, and so at the end of the dinner, I just went over and I talked to her about how I'd always regretted I never was able to give her a really nice engagement ring when we got engaged. And so I got down on one knee and I just said, would you marry me again? And I got out an engagement ring and gave her an engagement ring for our 25th wedding anniversary. And she said yes. And so then I told her the ceremony starts in 10 minutes. She said, what? And I said, we have a deck all reserved, and Tim is going to renew our vows tonight. And so we had candles set up out there, and it was just really beautiful. And so we renewed our vows on our 25th wedding anniversary, and that was 2 years ago. And so I asked her this week, I said, she always picks out our clothes. Everything I ever wear, it's because of her. People say you look good. I always say, it's all her. It's not me. I just put on the clothes that she tells me to wear. But this week I asked her, I said, could we wear what we wore when we renewed our vows? Could we wear that this Sunday? Just so that we would have that as a memory. And today, I hope, is going to be a very special day for you and for your marriage that you're going to remember. I've told you last week that today we're going to have a renewing of vows for every couple that is here on Valentine's Day. Friday, we went out for Valentine's Day, knowing that today is a busy day. So Friday, I took her out. And I do have to make a confession to you. I tell you, I've mentioned several times, we don't listen to secular music. We don't listen to Christian music. But I thought for Valentine's Day, I'll go back and find some of the songs. We haven't listened to these songs for 30 years, but when we were teenagers, some love songs that we listened to. And I got them on my phone. So when I took her out on a date, I just said, well, I have a little present I want to give to you. And I played these songs just from me to her, just to let her know how much that I love her. One of the songs was from a guy, some of you may know, we were country and western fans way back when we were kids. And so a guy named Ronnie Millsap sang a song that just says, what a difference you've made in my life. You're my sunshine day and night. What a difference you've made in my life. Now, the awesome thing about that song is it's not just a song between a man and a woman. It is a song to the Lord. It's a song saying to him, what a difference you've made in my life. And what a change you've made in my heart. You've enabled me to know your love so I can show your love, right? Is that good? So this morning, we're going to have the opportunity for couples to renew their vows, but it's more than that. Because we're going to do two things. We're going to, first of all of us, I'm going to give you the opportunity to renew your commitment to the Lord first. Whether your spouse is with you or not, all of us are going to do that. And then we're going to have the opportunity for every couple to rededicate and recommit yourself to your spouse. Is that good? Yeah. Is that all right this morning? I'm going to ask Dan if he'll help me maybe to just move this table. I'm going to ask if you will to stand. And if you're able, I'm going to ask you to come forward down to the front of the sanctuary. Every couple and every person in the house this morning. sing this, you can. Now, I told Jess, I said, if you want to come up and stand next to me, I'll look in your eyes while I sing this. But you might want to just look at your spouse this morning, and I want to encourage everyone to come, whether you're married, whether you're single, whether your spouse is here or they're not. You can sing this to them, but I also want to encourage you to sing it to the Lord. And what a difference you've made in my life. What a difference you've made in my life. You're my sunshine day and night. Oh, what a difference you've made in my life. What a change you have made in my heart. What a change you have made in my heart. You replaced all the broken parts. Oh, what a change you have made in my heart. Love to me was just a word in a song that been way overused. But now I've joined in the singing, 'cause you show me love's true meaning. That's why I want to spread the news. What a difference you've made in my life. What a difference you've made in my life. You're my sunshine day and night. Oh, what a difference you've made. And what a change you have made in my heart. What a change you have made in my heart. You replaced all the broken parts. Oh, what a change you have made. Oh, what a difference you made. Yeah, what a difference you've made in my life. Amen. Give the Lord a hand of praise this morning for the difference that He's made in your life. Amen. Come on up here, babe. Hopefully you have your spouse with you, but if you don't, we're going to make a commitment, first of all, to the Lord. I want every person in the room. Maybe you made a commitment to the Lord a year ago. Maybe you made a commitment to the Lord 30 years ago. But today, I want you to make a new commitment to Him. Would you say this after me? Lord, I am much less than perfect. But today, I come again to ask your forgiveness for my sin and to recommit my life to you. You are my source. You are my strength. I need you more than ever. I reaffirm my commitment to be your child and to follow you. Help me grow in my relationship with you and with others. In Jesus' name. Amen. And I know He's heard that this morning. And I believe it honors the Lord when we make a commitment to our spouse. And so I'm going to ask you if you'll just take your spouse by the hand this morning. You can look at them right in the eyes. I get to look at the prettiest eyes in the whole place. And if you'll just say this after me, I love you. I'm committed to you. Today, I publicly renew my vow to love you unconditionally. I take you again to be my wife, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, and forsaking all others, to love and to cherish, so long as we both shall live, with God as my witness. I give you my promise. I believe that honors the Lord this morning. Amen. You can now kiss your bride. Now let me just encourage you. Renewing your covenant of marriage isn't just about what you did right here. It's now about following through with that continually. Amen. I'm believing the Lord is going to bless us to have favored marriages. Amen. The favor of God in your marriage and in your home in a way that you've never experienced before. Amen. You are so good to us, Lord.
Nothing good in me. You are love on display for all to see. You are light when the darkness closes in. You are hope, you have covered all my sin.